Hi, everybody. I want to thank you for joining this conversation today, and especially I want to thank the Moroccan Finance Minister, Minister Alaoui, for joining us today. Thank you for being here. If you don't mind, we'll jump right into it. We'd like to discuss sort of Morocco, the situation in Morocco, and so your engagements at the World Bank and IMF for the annual meetings. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So with your permission, I'll jump right into it. First, I'd like to start just speaking about Morocco at a high level. Morocco, over the past sort of 15 years, has demonstrated incredible growth. The economy's grown by 70% over 15 years, reflecting steady growth. The first half of the year has been growth over 5% on an annual basis, and has been driven by trade, in part. Trade led by manufacturing, the auto industry, agro-industries, and energy as well. I know that for Morocco, social outcomes are important. Morocco's achieved some really impressive outcomes with, I think, an estimated 78% of the population being covered by healthcare, and sort of the healthcare budget reaching approximately 5.7%, and a strong push sort of to reach 100% coverage and improve the quality of healthcare in the country, kind of reflecting the strong commitment to social outcomes for the people as well. But of course, as with all countries, there's challenges: employment, affordability, investment in social programs, etc., including affordable housing, things like that. How is the government of Morocco and the Ministry of Finance in particular approaching sort of structural and fiscal reforms to sustain the growth, but ensure inclusive growth that sort of brings in sort of the broader population as part of the growth story?
Once again, thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity maybe to give an outlook of what's going on in Morocco. Our country have been, I would say, reforming significantly for the last 25 years. And I think now we are much more accelerating to reach this level of growth that are necessary for an emerging market and for a middle-income country that wants to reach higher levels. So as regards the economy, I think the pillars are really diverse ones. First, we have a strong infrastructure. When I mean infrastructure, it goes from port, airports, connectivity, but also strong doing business environment, reforming, I would say, all the processes, the administration. We also have very comprehensive strategy for the economic sector. Today our economy is really diversified, but a lot of sectors are contributing to this. You mentioned manufacturing. We are the first producer and exporters of cars in Morocco. I'm also glad and honored to announce that we will be also producing engines for aviation, which is really we have industry like tourism, renewable energy, agriculture. The years that we have, I would say, good rainy years. Unfortunately, we didn't have it for 7 years. So all these strategic sectors have the purpose actually of being integrated in the global value chain, capture more added value in Morocco, and trade with the world. Other pillar of this economic strategy is Morocco have made the choice for early stages and bravely of having free trade agreements with many, many countries, which allows actually for this dynamism of export. On the other hand, of course, we need human capital, this demographic dividend. So we are speeding the pace of the reform on education, on health, on social protection. And you mentioned that we are having good results. But on the same time, I think there is challenges first for the youth and the jobs. We are facing now unemployment rate. So what we want to do is first make sure that the reform on education prepare the future generation to have the capabilities to join this dynamism of growth, but also find short-term and immediate solutions through, I would say, programs to second chance school for those who have to quit college or school, and also push for entrepreneurship. This unemployment rate, what we need to do is that we lost a lot of jobs in the agriculture because we have 7 years of drought, so it's like 1 million jobs left that was lost in 10 years. So we need to catch up this job that were lost and create others. Another point that is very important, the social protection, I would say, big reform that is very important, needs to be funded, I would say, sustainably. And this is why our government is consolidating, I would say, progressively, I would say, our fiscal deficit, increasing the revenues, because we need to do at the same time this consolidation of the social state, but also, I would say, allow for a growth for private sector to develop.
Thank you, that's really helpful. And I mean, I think Morocco's been recognized for these achievements. S&P upgraded the country's rating recently to BBB-, which is sort of an achievement. Now, you touched on a few things, and we'll come back to them. Maybe as a follow-up question to that, since 2020 and the COVID pandemic, the world has witnessed a few things that I think, I'd be curious to understand how they've impacted Morocco. First, we saw how disruptions of supply chains sort of could really disrupt economies as a whole. And we've also seen sort of challenges for countries in containing and managing inflation. And both of these have had an impact on countries, but their people in particular, especially the most vulnerable and low-income people. It's manifested in the cost of living, the cost and supply of housing and affordable housing being an example. How was Morocco impacted by this? How did the country respond to it? And looking forward, sort of what do you anticipate there?
As you mentioned, we had this multiple crises since COVID and then the war in Ukraine. And of course, Morocco was hit directly by this. We export oil, we export wheat, and we have tourism that was impacted, etc. I think that what was really important and key in the success of managing this crisis is that we have responded quickly and with really in a bold manner to this crisis, not to have the business or the economy, I would say, just fall down, and also to bring support to the citizen. So we had to choose the priority, and this is very important. We said during COVID time there will be a transfer, the most vulnerable. Technology helped to do it in a very efficient and transparent way. Then with inflation, we said we cannot afford to increase prices of electricity, so we funded for this. We also, we didn't give subsidies for oil, we cannot afford it, but we said for transportation, which is a solution for the most vulnerable, we kept the prices as is, we didn't have an increase. Exact same thing for the transport of the goods, because at the end of this is just to give an example that we have limited resources and we knew that we had to act and bring immediate solutions. So first, we prioritized. We were very transparent and efficient in implementing, and we stopped the moment it was not needed, because I think this is the most difficult one. The moment that the oil prices have decreased, we said we cannot support anymore. And the good thing is that there was I would say, an environment for trust, not for the businesses to collapse. We also have a monetary policy that has helped because we needed liquidity, etc. So I think there was a comprehensive and full set of measures that have helped us, I would say, manage this crisis. Inflation was like 13% in February 2023, and 24 we was less than 1%. And hopefully this year we will be around 1.5, for sure, and less than 2%.
That's That's very helpful. I mean, inflation and the areas you spoke about tends to hit the most vulnerable the hardest, and they have the least capacity to respond. Now, you touched on something else, which was sort of the droughts and renewable energy. Obviously, sort of, there's a global discussion around climate change and how to respond to climate change. Morocco is not immune, like many other countries. You mentioned the prolonged drought. Now, what's notable is that Morocco's made some really ambitious commitments on energy transition. If I'm not mistaken, I think today Morocco's about 40% of its energy is sourced from renewable sources, with a goal of reaching 50% by 2040. No, by 2030, in fact.
Yeah, 52 by 2030.
Yeah, and sort of as much as 70 and 80% by 2050. That's very ambitious. And you mentioned water. Water matters for industry, but it matters for the average citizen, and it matters for agriculture, as you mentioned. How's Morocco balancing the need for sort of sustainable growth and meeting these commitments, but also the need sort of to ensure access for citizens, but also for growing industry?
Okay. For Morocco, it's not just a strategy or some moral values to tackle the climate change, I would say, spillovers. I think it's been a consistent strategy, and really it's been going for almost 2 decades now. And with a strong conviction that actually we are hit with climate problems daily, and that we have the responsibility to bring solution, but we are convinced also by the opportunities. Let me put it differently. For renewable energy, as you said, we've been able now to achieve this 40% capacity, reaching 52%. Because we need competitive and affordable electricity, but also because the value proposition of Morocco to host FDIs, to host other industry, was also built on the fact that we were able to produce renewable energy. So when I was telling you about the engines for aviation, I think part of the decision was due to the fact that we were able to be a reliable partner that can provide renewable energy. So this is why we have today enough partners or investors that also are allowing for this strategy to go faster. On water, I think what is very important and happening now is we are not tackling a year where we suffer from drought. I think that the base case, unfortunately, is that we are lacking water. We need water. So this is why we have a plan with the objective that by 2027 we will have 50% of the drinking water coming from, I would say, alternative sources, namely desalination, and this will put less pressure on agriculture. So any water we save on this, we put it for the water. And we also, and you mentioned it, we ask the industry that consumes a lot of energy and water to, I would say, participate to the effort of investment in water and renewable, because priority is citizen and drinking water, and then agriculture.
That's helpful. It's one thing that sort of strikes me about Morocco's success is a partnership between the government and the private sector, and the ability so far to set these sort of bold ambitions at a national level, and sort of to work collaboratively with the private sector to achieve them. I know OCP has been really a leader in renewable energy and decarbonizing its industries, which interestingly sort of has helped decarbonize meaningful parts of Africa, because they're plugged into the global supply chain and to the Africa supply chain, and they stepped in during the war in Ukraine to ensure sort of access to fertilizer for countries that were disrupted. So that's quite impressive. Now, you've mentioned sort of trade integration quite a few times. Sort of not just trade in raw materials, but actually trade in processed, transformed, sort of IP sort of materials, jet engines being a really good example. But that's true sort of for Europe, but Morocco has also integrated with sort of its region, but also sort of south with sub-Saharan Africa. And it's notable, I used to live in West Africa, I'm Central African myself, that Morocco is very visible in sub-Saharan Africa, and it's really served as a bridge between North Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. And kind of going back to COVID, we saw how these disruptions sort of really disrupted some of these economies. Can you speak maybe to how Morocco sees regional and sort of cross-regional integration as part of its strategy going forward?
I'd rather say that Morocco doesn't have an African strategy since Morocco is African, actually. And it is quite our DNA to not only to believe that this regional or continental integration is one of the key factors for future success, but we are working, I would say, toward this trajectory of having more integration. Of course, you have the free trade area, and we need to push institutional, I would say, initiative, and Morocco is present, and the African Union, very active, pushing for this. But you were mentioning private sector, and you were mentioning, I would say, a really pragmatic partnership, and this is also something Morocco is doing. We have a very strong footprint of our banks, our mining sector, fertilizer, not only in Western Africa, we started with this, but we are also expanding all over Africa because we have some expertise, we have some know-how, and we can be a reliable and long-term solution. We saw a lot of other, I would say, financial players coming to Africa, going back, but Africa cannot afford stop and goes in the development trajectory, and this is why I think that in Morocco our private sector have understood that first our market is too small, and when you have a bigger market then you are more performant, you can also hire more talented people, access to more financing, and on the other hand we are also having in public policies and public investment that are also helping this integration. I will mention the Atlantic Initiative. So we have this port of Dakhla that is, I would say, enabling in the future some Sahel country to have access to the port and to the sea. Connectivity, Royal Air Maroc, our flagship, I would say, airline company, is really putting a lot of their fleet and their energy to connect better Africa. And I think that this market, we're talking about a big market, 1.5 billion people, etc., needs to happen. And I think that all the African countries working together can make it happen, I would say, quicker and faster than what we've unfortunately seen for the last years.
Thank you for that. That's really encouraging. Now, one thing that is worth noting in this sort of in this vein, even as recently as this week, but sort of there's been a growth in recent years of both tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade globally. Is that impacting Morocco? How are you sort of responding to that sort of dynamic? How do you see that evolving, maybe?
Of course, we have made the choice to integrate the global value chain, to trade with the world, and to have free trade agreements. So any change of the tariff have direct and indirect impact. Direct on tariffs, I think we've been in the lucky group of the 10%, so it's okay. And in any case, we are importing much more than we are exporting in this part of the world, in the US. So this direct tariff won't change, I would say, the balance or the. But we trade with other countries that are, I would say, adapting to this. And you know that the economy, the business don't like, I would say, volatility and so this is really the major point, because at the end of the day, you adapt your prices, you do your homework when you have a massive change, and it is a massive change. Then you have to be clever to look for markets, for other suppliers, for other customers. But in the meanwhile, you have a period of time when you have this lack of visibility. And this is why I'm coming back to your first question. This is why the diversity of our economy allow us maybe to go through this interesting journey and having a growth despite the fact that we are trading with Europe, and Europe has no significant growth. And the other thing is that we are not changing our roadmap, because I think if we are an honest broker between Europe, Africa, Middle East, as you said, so we need to be stable. Not only, I would say, in our country, but really a reliable and stable partnership to see this is our strategy, this is our philosophy, this is our commitment. We need to adapt, of course, but not changing the long-term vision.
Excellent, thank you. Two more questions, if you'll allow me. One is kind of focused on sort of partnerships and multilateral institutions. Obviously, we're at the World Bank and IMF meetings. Morocco is active across institutions and is really active sort of globally, as you mentioned, kind of at the crossroads between Africa as a whole, North and Sub-Saharan Africa, Europe, Atlantic broadly, Gulf countries, etc. The world, though, feels unstable right now. But it would appear that sort of multilateral institutions maybe are more important than ever, sort of to offer a forum for people to speak. How does Morocco sort of engage effectively with multilateral institutions, sort of to advance its agenda, but also so to advance what it sees as a global and important agenda?
We are just starting the annual meeting, so let's wait for the end of the week to see what will be, I would say, the conclusion. But Morocco have benefited a lot of strong partnership with the international financial institution, and namely World Bank and IMF. And I think that the journey of Morocco, of these reforms, of this dynamic in the economy, on the consolidation of the macroeconomic fundamentals, not only is, I would say, a success for Morocco and good news for Morocco, but it's also an example that the purpose of this financial institution is to help countries to develop, to become emerging market, and then to expand, to prevent from the middle-income countries trap. So Morocco is very loud to say that we benefit from this institution, and we have strong partnership, and we can show together results that can be, I would say, benchmark for other countries. We want to go furthermore in a more dynamic economy, and we need to learn from peers through this financial institution. And this is why we need to be loud to say this is the moment when we need them to be strong to help other countries that probably are in much more difficult situation than Morocco is.
Thank you. So we're coming to the end. Sort of maybe just an open question to you. As we wrap up, the audience is both people interested in diplomacy, foreign relations, but also private sector, all these things. What do you want people sort of to take away to make sure that they understand about sort of Morocco going forward, and what we can look forward to sort of from Morocco in the near and more ambitious future?
Okay. What I want to say is that Morocco, under the leadership of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI, have been reforming and transforming for the last 25 years. and my country is blessed to have a long-term vision. It is very important because the strategy is clear. Today, it's about implementing, it's about results, it's about, I would say, increase the pace of the reform, convince, I would say, the population, the citizens, that we need to do this reform. We have very strong results on economy. We have a credibility. We have a lot of partners that trust Morocco, and the results are there. But we need also to come with concrete and, I would say, urgent also maybe solutions for spatial disparities and also challenges like employment. But we are really careful about what's around us in the world. We are listening also to the expectation of the population and all I would say categories of the population. But we strongly believe that reforming, transforming is very important because the foundations are there. Now it needs to bring results and impact and to show them and share them with the maximum of the Moroccan citizens.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Well, with that, I'll thank you. Thank you for your contribution, and good luck with the meetings this week.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know they're going to be hectic. To the audience, I just want to flag that to please tune in from 2 to 2:30 for the next event, which will be a GeoEcon event entitled Assessing the World Bank's Approach to State-Owned Enterprises and Privatization. So we look forward to seeing you then. Madam Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.